to point B. It's the power to do something. That power can be used to benefit and bless people. That power can be used to crush and harm people. But it's the power to do something. And what we tend to do is think, I will, from my armchair, knowing absolutely nothing, disrespect somebody else's power to do something. From the sidelines, knowing almost nothing. Right? Anybody offended? Come on, come on. So, right? And so we criticize grocery clerks, we criticize store owners, we criticize companies, we criticize our government, we criticize family members, we criticize all the people who are trying to operate in the power to do something.
So what do we do when they're so wrong?
Yeah, do you have a comment? Yeah. And then we're going to close it out and let you guys start.
The concept of choice kept coming into my head. Like, I have the power, I am empowered to choose whether I do any of that.
Yes.
And so it's not, those things are not forced on me.
Correct.
But I get to choose to pay honor, to pay respect, to honor those in authority over me. And when it's a choice, when I choose that, then it's with a glad heart instead of have to, it's a get to.
Right.
And so that whole concept of choice is kind of just has blown me away in this last year that I've been exploring that with. It's an empowering thing. Because if you don't feel like you have a choice to honor somebody, respect somebody, that you feel like it's forced on you, then you're going to bristle and it's going to be a negative thing. But when you think of it, like you say, the airplane thing or the grocery store thing that you were, scenarios, you have the choice not to use the airplane or not to go to that grocery store or not to do those things. But when you think about it, like, hey, I'm choosing to go and participate in those things, then I'm also choosing to honor and respect and have, come under the authority of whatever.
You get
but
to
I don't
choose
have
to
to
love the power to do something.
Yeah.
You can. This is especially challenging for kids as they're growing up, because here's the thing. They want to make more and more choices and have more and more freedoms, which is the power to run their own life, right? They want to have the power to run their own life as they get older and older. The challenge with that is that they're not paying their own bills, they're not clothing themselves, they're not putting the roof over their head, and so there comes the tension. There comes the tension as parents and kids are learning what amount of power are you ready for? And our problem in America is we give kids way too much power before they have proven that they're ready. And here's how you know. For example, when you go to a friend's house, do you give your 3-year-old or allow your 3-year-old to play with the other person's remote control? Okay, thank you for shaking your head no. Thank you. Do you know how many friends I have who let their kid, and I'm like, this is not for you. Because at 3 years old, what do you do with a remote control? Well, gee, what show do I want to watch? No, you bang it on the table. That is not a proper use of the item that's in front of you. Therefore, you do not have or should not have the power to use it. Because I'm not going to lay out a bunch of knives in front of a kid, right? Why would I put a remote control? Until you have proven that you have the ability to exercise the power, it shouldn't be yours for your own protection. So, for example, my kids don't have the power to choose when they sleep. Well, at least when they're in bed. And they won't for a while until they have shown that they have the power to manage that in healthy ways. But what we tend to do is just give over power to people in our lives with no regard for how it's handled. And it's not just kids, it is spouse relationships, it's work relationships. How many of us have been in jobs where we will take the paycheck but curse them from day till night, morning till night, and we can't reconcile that? They have the power to own a company and run a thing. They have it. So engage in the way that God's leading you to, or get out. or find the path that God has for you. But come to love that there is a person who has the power to do something. And if you don't like the way they're doing it, you have a ton of choices. But what we end up doing is we hear a negative voice in our head that boxes us into lose-lose scenarios, right? Boxes us into, but I didn't have a choice with my parents like this, but I don't have a choice for the holidays with this. I don't have a choice with my company with this, right? And we're boxed into no's, 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 no's. That's the X that marks the spot, right there. When you're locked into 2 losing scenarios, that's the X where you start to stop, get creative, and ask the Lord, what is the wealth of opportunity that exists before me where I have choices? Where I have choices where I can come to value the power that somebody has and no longer let it abuse me and no longer cause it for me to abuse them. And I'm going to close here, but this is an essential piece, and I want you to be able to think about it as we head into next week. So the Lord was talking to me about our marriage. And by the way, I just told Greg like a week or 2 ago, like, you're practically perfect in every way. Like, the truth
Except for one.
There's like one area of challenge that we have, but pretty much everything else is boom, boom. Like, I am super, super fortunate.
I think he said definitely everything else. So I just got this one thing.
That's what he said, yeah, just this. So, but when we were in the throes of the hardest part of our marriage, where we weren't even sure we liked each other at all, much less loved each other, much less like could even be kind to each other, I remember the Lord asking me, let me teach you about honor. And I said, how can I honor him? I don't even respect him right now. And he said, oh, see, now that's the problem. He said, I didn't want to teach you about respect. I wanted to teach you about honor. And what he said to me, or what I perceived he said to me, was he said, respect is earned. Honor is given. Now, I'm going to be really honest with you. Since then, I've looked that up, and it's totally nowhere. There is no evidence anywhere that that's actually accurate. But I was pretty confident that it totally would, like, because every time the Lord tells me something, like, I go back and I discover, like, that's really actually true. But by the way, that's just a personal thing. That's what he shared with me. But what he was trying to help me understand was the difference between the power to do something, what you give to someone in response to their actions, which I was perceiving now as respect, versus honor, which had nothing to do with his actions. It had everything to do with who I am. And it had everything to do with, and several of you said, seeing the person the way God sees them. Respect for me became about, I respect and admire the way that you handle yourself, the way you handle this situation. But honor was about, this is what I give to you because of who you are, regardless of how you behave. And when that conversation started, it also then started to peak on authority. And the Lord said, now let's go back and revisit authority, because you want to operate with authority in your work. You cannot be a whiner and a complainer, wise in your own eyes, and operate in authority in people's lives. You want to operate in authority in your boss's life? Love authority. You want to operate in authority in your marriage? Love authority. Love what is right. Understand the principles of authority and the principles of relationship so that you can operate in power. Because authority gone without honor and respect is abuse. And when we find ourselves under authority and we have no honor or respect, we will be abused and we will become abusive. But it is possible to be in many situations where someone has authority and they do not deserve respect, but we can have honor and we're able to walk through that situation properly in a way that is honoring and powerful. So we'll revisit that next week, but I would love for you to take notes this week as the Lord continues this conversation. Become aware of all the things that you complain about and ask yourself this one question. This is your assignment. Ask yourself this one question. Am I willing to do anything positive about it? That's the question. So when you're complaining about how somebody runs the company, runs whatever, is doing whatever. Am I willing to do a single positive thing to create a positive answer? Or am I willing to invest? Or am I just whining? Those are good questions. Okay, I'm sorry I went way, way, way over. But us all sharing was just too good to stop, and then I still have things to share, and so I'm gonna have to figure that all out. But I'm sure the Lord will figure something out, so sorry for you guys, but you're gonna be awesome and amazing and figure it out.
I just had a really